What is going on, everybody? Voidlego here, back with a brand new episode of Chaos Ed Noah. Last time we were on, Takumi was, as is always, continuing to lose his mind, considering that a new gen murder has occurred of three people being strung up on a telephone pole and the letters NDE being carved into her chest or something along those lines. But as with the other ones, it is as gruesome as ever. And so Takumi just kind of goes crazy. I mean, he's already crazy. But he tries to find some answers and he tries to find some comfort within Rimi, but doesn't really work out. And Rimi tries to help the best she can, but she eventually leaves. There is not much she can do for Takumi. Eventually, Takumi gets curious and decides to work for the essay he wrote in elementary school that included the phrase, "Whose eyes are those eyes?" And it turned out it described a weird dream he had of meeting a future version of himself, and that he had a machine that was able to make anything come true, but he gave some cryptic, words to Takumi, which is just pure nonsense to present Takumi, and kind of to us, it really doesn't help give us much about, what the hell is actually going on. Eventually, Takumi turns over the page, and he finds a monster that young Takumi describes as, "This monster appears whenever I indulge in my hallucinations or my delusions." And what the image is the same image we keep seeing every time we do a delusion, or sometimes every now and then. And that, according to young Takumi, it angers this monster or something along those lines. So what does that mean? Who knows? And also it includes the mathematical equation that Shogun told Takumi at the very start of the game as well. So I think Shogun's actually like a future version of Takumi or something. I don't know. This guy knows so much about Takumi, so intricate details. It's either one of two things. Either it is like a future version of Takumi coming back in time to help him discover his powers and control it before it's too late, or B, Shogun could be one of the scientists that tested on Takumi in the other girls we've come across so far, which leads into my next point. Ayase. We saw her in the hospital where Suwa tries to question her, but she really doesn't answer anything back. She still believes in her reality of, she was not trying to kill herself. She was trying to go to the next point in order to be one with the Almighty One, or whatever she called it. But she does have a flashback to the past when she was in her asylum as a child, and it seemed like she was being tortured via the old water drop torture technique, having her just have a single drop of water placed on her forehead every couple of seconds in the exact same manner, which almost drove her completely insane. Which, I think what's really going on here is Nozomi. Nozomi is the big bad of this game. Like CERN in Stein's game, right? They're the big bads here. What they were trying to do back in the past, they were trying to control people via any means necessary. Eventually, they come to discover gigglomaniacs. What gigglomaniacs are people who have mental illnesses but are pushed to their absolute limits, which allow them to get their discords, right? Once they're able to get their discords, they're able to influence reality or change reality to what they want. And what Nozomi was trying to do, at least I'm thinking, was try to weaponize these gigglomaniacs, try to get their power via any means necessary, which is why they tortured Ayase, to create a kind of man-made version of a gigglomaniac instead of it happening naturally, right? They tried to do this over and over again. Eventually, it just did not work out. They probably did this with at least the only two I think could be confirmed is Takumi and Elise. Elise because she was sent to a mental hospital when she was young, and the same thing with Takumi when. Well, he wasn't sent to a insane asylum, at least according to him. He was always just checked up by doctors and such, and we did see a black suit in one of the background CGs, right? So they were obviously keeping an eye on him, and actually, yeah, Houshi gave him a Nozumi-like survey as well, which was very interesting, which means they were keeping an eye on him. But something didn't work out, and the two head scientists of this was Shogun and the homeless dude that we saw from Kazupi's flashback. They were both a part of it, but somehow it just did not work out. What that was, I don't know. But it did not work out, and they went a different direction into the Noah project, which was a much more easier way to distort people's visions of reality via just radiomagnetic waves or electrical magnetic waves via, carriers and such like that. And they decided to go that way instead of the Gigwomaniac way, aka like kind of super soldiers in a way. So I think that's what's happening here. I feel like Shogun was like one of the head scientists because he knows so much about Discords and about Takumi specifically that I feel like they experimented on him or tried to experiment on him via any means necessary or see his progress as he continued to grow and grow and grow. But it just did not work out, and the Committee of 300 decided to go with the Noah project instead. Or maybe Norzumi themselves, maybe they just went for the Noah project instead. I don't know, but that's what I think is happening now. Is they just failed at their first project, and they're going for the second project, which was Noah, which is working out much more conveniently for them. Unfortunately, they still have these Gigwomaniacs out and about, and specifically Shibuya. So how they will deal with those, who knows? But it doesn't seem like they're that big of a deal to them since they haven't mentioned them once, right? It's really like maybe Shogun's trying to fight back. Maybe this is what all it is. Is Shogun's just kind of revenge against Nozumi for cutting him and his like funding off for this project, right? Maybe all of this is just one big revenge plan. Maybe I'm just making all this shit up. But that's kind of the conclusion I've come to. I feel like all the pieces are there, but like I just need a little bit more connective tissues between them. About the New Gen Murderers, though, I have no idea what the hell that's about. I feel like it's a distraction from the public from looking towards Nozumi themselves via making this whole, there's murders about, creating these weird and wacky murders, right? Place all public focus on that. Or, I don't know, maybe Shogun's doing it. Who knows? I don't know, but that's the best I got right now, folks, so let's get right into it. Within the Frisia reception room, or rather the narrow space pardoned off by a few shelves being used as one, Ban sat deep in concentration, scanning through a number of files. Opposite to him sat Yua, huddled up and making herself small. She had been taking frequent glances at Ban in an attempt to read his expression. From an outsider's perspective, it appeared almost like a child showing their parent the report card. Also, we found out Yua's sister was actually part of the first, quote-unquote, murder of New Gen, aka the group dive. And her parents pretended that she did not exist right after she died, which is very interesting. Ban was currently reading the report of everything Yua had investigated concerning the New Gen cases and Nishijou Takayumi. It also included the chat log between Takayumi and Shogun from the day prior to the crucifixion case. As a result of her findings, Yua had concluded that Takumi was undoubtedly the true culprit behind the New Gen cases.
すごいわね。これ全部一人で調べたの？
はい。 一応。
Yua hung her head apologetically in response to Momose's praise. She stared at the Gregorfaki straps hanging from the bag below her feet. She was speaking with a detective and the boss of an investigation firm. In terms of investigating, they were as professional as one could get. Compared to their prowess, information gathered by the investigation of an ordinary high school girl would be akin to childish scribblings. And yet, despite the supposed gap, Ban and Momose found themselves both impressed by the quality of the report.
なかなかいい着眼点だ。よく調べたな。とりわけこの西条匠の多重性ってのが興味深い。西条匠は多重人格であり、オリジナルとなった西条匠の人格が眠っている時、つまり他の人格が活動中に事件を起こしている。本当に面白いわ。
Dr. Jekyll, Mr. Hyde.
まあでも、ちょっとばかり現実離れしすぎてるかな。
刑事さんはその西条くんのこと犯人だって考えてないんですか？
はっきり言っていいかい？
Her face stiffened, but after a moment Yua nodded.
警察じゃ西条匠は容疑者として見ていない。
Ooh.
へえ、そうなの。
Really? Not just Yua, but Momose gasped in amazement as well. Gaped? A wide smile formed on Ban's lips. He leaned back in his seat and rested the back of his head in his hands.
少なくとも貼り付け事件じゃ西条は白だ。遺体を貼り付けていた杭には指紋がべったり付着しててな。
Really?
西条の指紋を手に入れて照合してみたんだが、全く合致しなかった。
Yua's turned paler by the second her lips trembled. Now that everything she had believed in had collapsed beneath her feet, feelings of guilt at the awful things she had said to Takumi encroached upon her heart.
杭にあった指紋から容疑者についてはほぼ固まってんだ。まだマスコミにも公表してねえけどな。ちなみにそれ、諏訪のお手柄だったりする。
諏訪ちゃんは頑張ってるっていうのに、バンちゃんはよくここでのんびりしていられるわね。
実は俺、捜査本部から外されたんだわ。
Whoa.
はあ？
本来の捜査サボって G レートのこととか調べてんの上司にバレちゃってな。
This was the reason why subordinate Suwa had been the one to inform him of the seventh incident. There had been no reason for anyone else to call an investigator that was no longer working the case.
あんたね、もっとうまく立ち回りなさいよ。まあバンちゃんに G レートのことを教えた私にも責任はあるけど。
気にすんなって。それに G レートの件は個人的にも気になってたんだ。まあ西条にしても貼り付け以外の事件じゃまだ捜査線上にいる。もしかするとユアちゃんの推理が正しいかもしれん。
ニュージェネは同一犯による連続殺人事件じゃないって警察は考えてるの？
まだなんとも。ただついさっき第7の事件が起きたようだしな。個人的には犯人は複数いると思ってる。
I mean, it makes the most amount of sense, especially the way they're all set up.
いろいろ喋っちまった。口外したって知られたらクビになっちまう。今のはオフレコな。
Ban playfully placed his forefinger on his lip.
で、本題なんだわ。
Having thought that her report had been the reason she had been summoned, Yua tilted her head in puzzlement.
聞きたいことってのは学校のことなんだよ。 ユアちゃんは青井瀬名って子知ってるかい？
Ooh.
君の同級生のはずなんだが。
After pondering for a moment, Yua shook her head apologetically.
名前は聞いたことがあるような気がしますけど、話したことはありません。
ああ、そうか。
その人が犯人なんですか？
Well, no, personally. I mean, I just saw footage of her swinging a big ass sword around and killing a couple guys, but you know.
ああ、全くの別件だ。昨日徹夜したのもその子のこと調べてたからでな。
あんたさっき女子高生の生態がどうとかって。
Momose, ever perplexed, received a wink and a grin from Ban before he turned back towards Yua.
例えば学校でものすごい手品を使う女生徒がいるって噂を聞いたことは？
いえ、ありませんけど。
さっぱり話が見えないわね。何のこと？
例えば
Like summoning a giant sword.
何もない空間から剣を取り出すような手品とか。
Yeah. Yua's head snapped upward. Her expression was one of blamed astonishment.
どうしてそれ？
Oh? Despite being the one to ask the question, Ban also had a look of surprise on his face.
心当たりがあるのかい？
Yua hesitated, then after a moment nodded resolutely.
どこで見た？
駅の近くの地下道です。西条くんと岸本さんが。
Oh.
フェスだな。それで
Yua briefly recounted her dramatic pursuit from around 2 weeks prior. How she had gone to a manga cafe to meet Nishijou Takumi. How she had been a little forceful when talking to him, causing him to flee. How she had frantically chased him around Shibuya. How he had then managed to evade her, and how right when she was about to give up, she had stumbled upon Takumi and Elise entering the underpass.
だから私、その階段の上から二人の様子をこっそり伺っていたんです。二人は階段の一番下で何か話していて、どんなことを話していたかは聞き取れなかったんですけど、そしたら突然岸本さんが剣を何もないところから取り出したんです。
Interesting.
すごく大きな剣でバッグにも入らないような。
まさか。
俺が見たものと同じだな。
え？
俺が見たのは岸本じゃなかったかな。さっき名前を出した青井瀬名っていう少女だ。実は葵が剣を振り回してたっていう目撃証言が渋谷のあちこちから出てる。
Really?
その手品、渋谷の若い子たちの間で流行ってるのかしら。
でも私が見たあれは手品にはとても見えませんでした。それに
他にも何か見たの？
信じてもらえるかどうかわからなくて、誰にも話したことはないんですけど、あの時岸本さんは剣を出しただけじゃなくて。
She's actually split in two. Yua's words faltered and she slowly licked her lips. She looked lost on whether or not she should continue. Her eyes darted around the room. But eventually she steeled her resolve and fixed her gaze upon Ban.
二人に分身したんです。
Damn. Wow, okay.
まるで本当にその場に二人いるみたいでした。 私、わけがわからなくて。
So it seems like the base ability is to get this sword, right? And then you have an extra ability to do something. Like Kazupi, for example, which is kind of telepathy. Even though Senna doesn't say it's telepathy, I'm just going to call it telepathy. She has that as well. Same thing with Kishimoto, I guess, is pull out the sword and also split in two, which is interesting. And I guess that would work for Takumi as well. His main power, or he's able to try to get at this sword, but his main power is to change reality on a fundamental level, right? So I guess all Giggle Maniacs have two powers in that respect. The heavy silence covered the reception room. All three within it were at a complete loss for words.
とにかく一体どんな種があるのかわかんねえが、そんな手品みてえな真似ができる連中がこの渋谷には何人かいるらしい。それと岸本綾瀬も青井瀬名も西条匠と接触したことは確認済みだ。
But this begs the question. Senna's sword was on camera. She actually pulled it out. But we don't know about Elise, which puts the little question in my head of, is Yua also a Giggle Maniac, or is able to see the swords in their kind of temporal form, I guess you could say.
これが偶然とは思えねえわけよ。
西条くん。
あの少年の周囲ではどうも現実離れしたことばかりが起きてるような気がする。
This man said that his words from the call before reappeared in his mind.
怪獣か魔法使いで済ませられるならやっぱだいいけどね。
Or witches. Bands murmured did not reach the other two. At least averse to the gloomy atmosphere, but mostly took a breath and sipped on the tea her subordinate had brought over to her. Then, as she brought the cup back down, she put on a smile and ceremoniously made to change the topic.
ところで岩ちゃん、そのカバンにぶら下がってるカエル、最近流行ってるんでしょ？
あ、はい。
Yua gave a sigh of relief, having been saved by the kind company president.
なんて言うんだっけ？
ゲロカエルです。
いろいろ種類が出てるんじゃなかった？ 10 種類ぐらい。
はい。私は友達からもらっただけなので詳しくは知らないんですけど。
なんだってこんな手抜き商品が流行るんだろうな。見た目だって俺の方がずっと可愛いぞ。
バンちゃん、寝言は寝てから言いなさい。
冗談だって。
I'll get a push you, Ben.
私も実はどうして流行っているのかよくわからないんです。
あら、結構可愛いと思うけどね。
ももちゃんの見る目も衰えたな。
世論は私の方が正しいって証明してるじゃない。バンちゃんも買いに行った方がいいわよ。
一体どこへ行けば買えるものなんだ？
ゲロカエルの専門ショップがあちこちにあって。
専門ショップだ？
Damn.
そこで金曜日に行列に並べば買えると思います。
金曜日？
Wait.
毎週金曜日に新しいデザインのものが発売になるんです。好きな子はコンプリートとか言って全部集めてるみたいで。
Wait. Didn't we find out of like the G rate like spikes up during like holidays, or was it down? I can't remember specifically. Or something happens to the GE rate. It either goes up or down during certain holidays, right? Son of a bitch, the Grego Froggies were more important to this. Is Inozumi using the Grego Froggies as a way to like like, influence people via, like, GE rates? I mean, every Friday is very, very specific. While Yua was in the midst of speaking, Bandit turned to Momose while scratching the stubble on his chin.
金曜か。流行るとは思えないものが流行ってて。
Yeah?
G レートは毎週末に上昇する。
Yeah.
まさかバンちゃん。
当たってみる価値はあるかもな。
Well, son of a bitch, I did not expect the Gurga Froggies to actually be important. Thought that was just a simple, like, you know, cute frogs. Never mind then. The second I poked my head into school on Thursday, Misumi-kun immediately invited me to go see Elise in the hospital with him. Given that the idea hadn't even crossed my mind, it caught me off guard. But before I'd even be able to respond, Rimi said she wanted to come too for whatever reason, and I ended up being swept along with her as a result. Now, let me be clear. I had a heart and all. But considering the menace known as Shogun was drawing closer and closer to me, I didn't think this was exactly the time to show it. I didn't want to die. Coming in through the front entrance, Misumi-kun looked around the lobby in confusion.
どうしたの？
いや、岸本の病室ってどこなんだろうなって思ってよ。
Had he seriously come this far without knowing that? This guy was beyond belief sometimes.
ここは外来棟だよ。病棟は隣。
そうなのか。
大地、しっかりしてよ。
AH Tokyo General Hospital. It was the hospital I'd gone to ever since I was a kid. I didn't come here just the other day, so I was pretty knowledgeable in where everything was. AH. Achievement Hunter Hospital. Dr. Takashina's face flashed across my mind, and I involuntarily groaned to myself. As we walked to the hospital ward, Misumi-kun turned to me. Is Dr. Takashina going to be like fucking, shit. Why can't I remember his name? From Higurashi. Is he always just gonna die every time we go into a route? Like, I already have that, like, base feeling already. Poor dude.
で、病棟の何号室だと思う？
そんなのわかんないよ。
This was a general hospital, so there are obviously a ton of different wards and departments, if I had to guess.
多分外科じゃないかな。でももしかすると精神科かも。
There hadn't been any visible injuries in Elise after she'd fallen, and considering she attempted suicide, her mind had likely been brought to the brink, so her being in the psychiatric ward seemed very possible. Even I'd been taken to the psych ward after the F war at O-Front.
タクって物知りだな。
常識でしょ、常識。ね、タク。
I don't think it's necessarily common sense. I might have not known if I hadn't come here so many times in the past. Right as we were entering the hospital ward, Rimi grew around to a halt.
私、お手洗い行ってくる。先に行ってて。
Bathroom, huh? With a wave of her hand, Rimi quickly headed back towards the outpatient ward. Thinking that wandering around that ward would cause problems for the patients, we decided to ask for help at the nurse's station. Just like I predicted, they told us that she was on the floor for psychiatric patients. Oh boy, here we go. Right off the bat, huh? Okay, well, you know the drill. Save. Saving probably ain't gonna fucking help with anything, but I'm still doing it. The hospital room had an area of around 10 square meters. Trying to think. I can't remember the last one I did. I think it was... I went with bad instead of good, so I'll go with good again. There was a toilet to the right of the entrance, and there was a bed near the back. The setting sun shone through the window on the other side of the room. Elise wasn't in the bed. Based on how the sheets were a little messed up, it looked like she hadn't been there until very recently. Alright, let's see what we got. Yep, it is the fucking monster it appears. I was right.
どこ行ったんだ？
さあ。
ま、戻ってくるまで待つか。
Oh, is this going to be a gay delusion? I don't know, I just already have that feeling. The moment he said them, Misumi-kun started rummaging around the room for some reason. He didn't have a shed of decency. Right now, it wouldn't be wrong to refer to this as Luisa's room. A number of her fangs were lying around, and mixed with the smell of antiseptic was that nice scent you could only find in a girl's room. Just kind of bursting into it while she wasn't there felt like we were peeping right into her private life, and I didn't feel very comfortable with that.
そういうの良くないよ。外で、待ってた方が。
ちょっと見るだけだって。お前も知りたいと思わねえのか？ S の私生活ってやつをよ。興味あるだろ？
Okay, sure, Luisa's personal life was a total mystery. Surely a quick glance wouldn't be so bad. Misumi-kun wasn't showing even an ounce of hesitation. Urged on by his bold attitude, my mind swiftly changed. I turned to look at the door to make sure no one was coming, then turned back towards the room. Feeling my heart thump hard in my chest, I started with the bed, took hold of the slightly ruffled sheets, and sniffed them. And then, having no idea what to expect, I gently turned them over, and what I saw was something beyond imagination. Oh boy. Hidden beneath the sheets was lingerie, a full set of lingerie. A pair of purple panties were scrunched up haphazardly. They had very clearly been taken off recently. This wasn't brand new condition. This was wholly and entirely used. And this was a private room. From that, one could only glean that Elise was the only one who could have worn these. This is so smexy. I hurriedly turned to check on Misumi-kun. Fortunately, he was too busy flipping through a magazine to have noticed my shocking discovery. I returned my glance to the underwear. I sniffed them. I gulped. My throat was dry as a desert. My trembling fingers, almost entirely on their own, reached towards the underwear. Feeling my pulse getting quicker and quicker, I, ever so softly, touched them. For some reason, they felt squishy, physical. Something wasn't quite right about this. Uh-oh.
それは私のお稲荷さんだ。見ろよタク、変な本があるぞ。
I suddenly realized Misumi-kun was calling me, and I actually wasn't groping his balls. I was standing in the corner of the hospital room. The bed sheets weren't turned over, and there was absolutely no sexy lingerie inside. What a stupid joke. But it fits. I still have to commend how the delusions are handled. Like, these are the type of shit a otaku from the 2000s would be having. These type of delusions. That's both, horror. It's either horror or, fan service, pretty much. Yeah, just been a delusion, huh? It ended with an extremely horrifying twist, so I'd make sure that memory remained forever sealed. He had taken a magazine from high up on the shelf and was staring at it fixedly.
ヌーだぜ、ヌー。
Dude, new metal?
この雑誌、まだ続いてたんだな。
New was a magazine that focused on all facets of the occult. UFOs, aliens, ESP, religion, urban legends, mysterious phenomenon, super ancient civilization. What the fuck are oop arts? It wasn't difficult at all to believe that our very own schizo shit-loving Elise would be reading it.
こっちの文庫本は、何々？グラジオール記黙示録詩編？ファンタジー小説っぽいな。
Oh yeah, we also found out that she gained most of her inspiration from a like fantasy epic saga like book series. I wasn't familiar with that specific book, but the term Grador did ring a bell. Where had I heard it again? I was pretty sure it'd been pretty recent.
岸本と付き合うとなるとこの趣味に合わせないといけねえのか。大変そうだぜこれは。
Look, man, you gotta do some things if you want to stick your dick in crazy. Had he still not given up on dating Louise, even after being turned down in the incident last time?
Huh?
Oh, you just noticed that? So anyway, Louise's disc sword came to view in the corner of my eye. It was leaning against a window. Looked like a space battleship ripped right out of a sci-fi movie. My opinion on it hadn't really changed either. It was an awesome looking sword, possessing equal parts beauty and cruelty. Even though it wasn't growing, and even though it was just leaning against a window, it still had the typical impressive feeling of presence to it. Misumi-kun showed no sign of noticing the sword. Huh. So the eyes of normal people couldn't see them after all. I wonder, if I were to take it without always knowing, would this sword become mine? If I could really obtain a disc sword with zero effort, then there was no time to waste here. The desire to do so bubbled up within me. With a gulp, I timidly, ever so timidly, reached out for the sword. I grasped the hilt. Or, well, I tried to grasp it. But my hand had gone right through it, leaving me grasping only thin air. I tried once more, but the result was no different. I couldn't grab it, couldn't even touch it. Did that mean that the sword wasn't real booted? This mutual recognition hadn't been achieved. It was no more than Elise's delusion. An illusion, a dream, an afterimage.
何やってんだお前。
Misumi-kun looked at me in confusion. They, just checking the windows for dirt. We then waited for around 10 minutes, but we still showed no signs of coming back. Same thing with Rimi. She was still in the bathroom, apparently. Where could she have actually gone? Yeah. Probably see Shogun.
リミってこの病室の場所知ってたか？
We asked for the location of the nurse's station after Rimi had left. She could very well be wandering all throughout the hospital as we spoke, not having any idea where we were or where this place was.
あいつバカだからな。俺たちみたいに誰かに聞こうって発想がないのかもしんねえぞ。
探しに。
I felt uneasy not being with Rimi. Can say for sure that this hospital was safe. If Shogun were reading my mind right now, he would have known that I was here.
そうだな。待つのも飽きたし、タクもあいつがいないと寂しいだろうからな。なあ、ぶっちゃけリミとはどうなんだ？
え？
Oh boy.
付き合ってんのかって聞いてんだよ。お前ら最近結構いい感じじゃね？
付き合ってないよ。
Despite what I said, my face was still flushed. Me and Rimi dating. It was true that I had delusions of that many times. I hadn't been interested in 3D in the past, but nowadays Rimi was becoming more and more important to me with every passing day. But back when Rimi had said she stayed by my side, she'd also said the following.
そんなの友達だからに決まってるでしょ。
In other words, she only saw me as a friend. There's no way in hell she'd want to start a romantic relationship with an otaku freak like me. Besides, Rimi would probably be a bit slow on the uptake with that kind of thing. They split ways with Misumi-kun and went to look for Rimi or Louise. Misumi-kun had gone downstairs, so I decided to take my search above.
Amisha! Amisha!
Oh boy. I passed by an older patient in the corridor, probably around his 50s. He was straggling down the hall while calling out to someone named Ami-chan over and over. I ignored him and headed farther into the corridor. Nobody seemed to mind me wandering around the hospital, maybe since I used to come here pretty often. But for every corner I turned and for every door I saw open, I felt my heart rate increase at the thought of Shogun appearing from them. Oh, wow. And not only that, but the occasional crazed screams and cries coming from any number of directions weren't exactly good for my mental state. The corridor was uniformly dyed a cream color. Some of the rooms were open, some were closed, and to make sure that there were no signs of Shogun being around, I peeked into a whole bunch of them. Each room had 2 beds lined up next to each other, with person-shaped bulges running underneath the sheets, likely sweeping patients, but their faces were always in a blind spot, so I couldn't see them. There weren't many people walking through the corridors. Just the man calling for Ami-chan and a single nurse. Those were the only 2 I passed by. I didn't really want to be here. I don't know why, but that feeling refused to leave me. The atmosphere was heavy. It wasn't oppressive per se, but I had the nagging feeling that I shouldn't have been there. A little farther in front of me, the corridor made a 90-degree turn to the right. Did hospital rooms continue through there, I wondered? As I pondered that, I cautiously turned the corner. What the fuck? And I was immediately met with a wall. It sat in the middle of my path, and in vast contrast to the entirely cream-colored hospital, it was covered in black paint from top to bottom. A complete dead end. What the fuck? For some reason, I didn't know. My pulse quickened. I couldn't move even a single step from where I stood. My vision wobbled and shook. Thinking it was vertical, I tried to close my eyes and massage my eyelids with my fingertips. I wanted to feel my eyeballs twitching beneath them. The chill was cold as ice crawled up from my feet. I stood dead in my tracks, forgetting how to even breathe, staring at the black in front of me. What the fuck? It felt as if it would suck me in, as if it would swallow me whole. The deep, never-ending darkness. Even though there shouldn't have been anyone there, it felt like someone was watching me. God's gaze pierced into the nape of my neck. Its presence was on a completely different level compared to how it would be at my base. What the fuck? Don't look. Mustering all my mental strength, I managed to close my eyes. I finally was able to breathe again, and I stepped back while grasping for breath. With my head facing down towards the ground, I fled through the corridor. I sped back to the floor of Luis's room, gasping and wheezing all the way. I touched the nape of my neck and felt sticky sweat oozing from it. But the sweat wasn't just coming from there, my entire body was drenched in it. I wonder, is that like a kind of mental block? Is that the corridor where Shogun's room is? But maybe they installed blockers in order for them not to see the scientist? Well, that homeless guy wasn't a blocker for Kazupi. Maybe because Kazupi wasn't a part of the experiment and she was able to see him? I don't know, but it definitely seems like a kind of mental block within his head. I don't think it's real because the hallway just doesn't just cut off right then and there. What the hell was going on? Was Shogun reading my mind? The presence of God's gaze wouldn't go away. My wheezing, shivering refused to calm down. Exhaustion had devoured my motivation in an instant. I wanted to go home. I wanted to have Rimi take care of me as we walked ourselves in my base. It wasn't like me visiting Louise would make her happy. If anything, would probably do the complete opposite. I was an idiot for coming along with Misumi-kun. That guy clearly had an agenda, and it was at complete odds with me. I had no reason to be here. I should just go home. Before either Shogun or Yua appeared. They always appeared whenever I least expected it. I bet they pinned down where I was with ease. No matter where I was, I needed to be prepared. Tracing the hall with my hand, I staggered my way to Luisa's hospital room. Had Misumi-kun gone back yet? Hoping he'd found Rimi, I dragged my legs forward.
Yamai-sanがまたアミーちゃんっていう名前を呼んでたんですよ。
I heard the voice of a nurse coming from ahead. Looking up, I saw the two of them were walking in my direction. One was young and the other was a well-built, middle-aged lady.
一体誰のことを探してるのか。
それこの病院に伝わる怪談よ。誰も知らない幻の病室があって、そこにアミーちゃんが入院してるらしいわ。
Phantom hospital room?
もう何年も前からある噂。
I looked back down and waited for the two to pass by. I held my breath to hide my ragged breathing. They could easily tell they were giving me suspicious looks, but they still ignored me all the same. After the two nurses passed me, I continued my endeavor and arrived at the nurses' station. I must have missed Elisa's room, as it should have been a bit before. Clicking my tongue, I wiped the sweat off my forehead. It still felt like I was being watched. The depths of my chest throbbed with pain. My ears were ringing too. I felt absolutely terrible. My body was a total wreck. I hadn't felt anything like this at all when I first got here. What the hell had happened to me in my body? With the pain overwhelming me and becoming too much to bear, I went to ask for help from the nurses at the nurses' station. But there was only one nurse there. She didn't seem to have noticed me. Her back was turned to me, and she was mumbling something while deeply absorbed in whatever she was working on. In her hand was a clipboard. She was writing something on a form stuck to it.
信仰の救いあれ、信仰の救いあれ、信仰の救いあれ、信仰の救いあれ、信仰の救いあれ、信仰の救いあれ、信仰の救いあれ、信仰の救いあれ、信仰の救いあれ、信仰の救いあれ、信仰の救いあれ。
What? I'd seen this person many times before. She was that one nurse, Hazuki-san. Oh, this was the AH Tokyo General Hospital Psychology Ward. Of course she'd be here. She already attended to me twice in the past month alone. Oh man, this is perfect. If I called out to her, she'd surely help me with whatever An urgent-sounding ringing noise suddenly rang throughout the room. Also, I guess you did not hear that? What the fuck was that? Hazuki-san put down her clipboard in surprise and operated a switch with her hand. The ringing sound was cut off. She'd probably been paid to do some nursing thing, as she rushed out of the nurse's station in a fury. May the divine light guide us. What the fuck? Why hadn't she noticed me? Even though I was suffering from so much pain right behind her. I could barely stay standing. Vertical was awful. With no other choice, I decided to go into the nurse's station to wait for someone to get back. I found a stool around where Hazuki-san had been standing and sat down. My head ached, felt like it had back when the earthquake hit a week ago. But this pain had a different nature to it, or so it felt anyway. I needed something to drink, just trying to breathe hurt my throat, likely because of all the gasping and wheezing I've been doing. I casually looked around the area. My eyes then landed upon the clipboard Hazuki-san had been holding. In the very next moment, what was scrawled and it entered my field of vision. What? The fuck? Whenever I'd gone in for a checkup, Hazuki-san had always been writing something on a clipboard of hers, all while having the same gentle smile on her face. I'd thought that she'd been writing down the prescriptions she planned on giving me, my temperature, things like that. That was why what was drawn there was beyond my comprehension. What the fuck? What the fuck? What the fuck is happening? I had seen it before. I'd already seen this shittily drawn sketch somewhere before. But where? Where had I seen it? Wait. My head ached. A stabbing pain pierced through it. Wait. When the hell? Wait. Now I kind of. Do I remember? Was that before the crucifixion case that like somebody sent in it? Was it Shogun? The hairs on the nape of my neck stood on end. What the fuck? Don't look at me. I picked up the clipboard. Countless medical forms are clipped onto it. I went to flip up the page. The second piece of paper had the same shitty drawing. Flip to the next page. What the fuck? The third was also the same. What? In the fourth, in the fifth, in the sixth? Each and every one of them had the same drawing scribbled on it again and again and again. This drawing... Where's the crucifixion? What the fuck is happening? What the fuck is happening? Every time I feel like I've solved something, every time I feel like I've come to an answer, I've come to a conclusion finally, a thing that finally makes everything make sense, it always hits me with another, what the fuck? Was Suzuki behind the crucifixion? Murder? But why would she draw that over and over again? And why the hell would she sing, "May the divine light guide us" under her breath? What the What the fuck? Oh my god, this game messes with my head so much. Holy shit. Evening fell on the roof of an old building in Shinsen, the building atop which Nishijou Takumi's container house stood, still as death. It was Aoi Sena's second time visiting it. Oh. The first time had been a few days prior, following her encounter with Kazue and Takumi and Cedric Guy. She had gone on to tell the boy in secret. Through this, the location was set in stone in her mind. Oh. The hell is she doing?
コドピ嫌いなの。
それならどうしてついてきた?
Senna regarded Kazue in a cold manner, refusing to even turn around to view her sagging shoulders nor her long face. Senna had come here to infiltrate Takumi's room. Why? Nishijou Takumi is not normal. That was the conclusion she had come to after speaking to him many times. Yeah, fucking no shit. There was no doubt in her mind that he was that was distinctly different to quote-unquote normal gigglomaniacs like Kazue and herself. Did he possess torsional abilities so abnormal it proved terrifying? Or could he perhaps be receiving some form of artificial support? Regardless of which it might be, the uncertain nature of Takumi greatly bothered Senna. As of the current moment, she was searching for a man known as Hatano. There was a very real possibility that Nishijou Takumi had some kind of connection to him. She had no conclusive evidence of this. But through investigating even the most slightly suspicious things through her own eyes, the possibilities would be torn down one by one. Then, with such methodology, she would find her target with absolute certainty. That was Senna's creed. The door had a padlock attached to it. With a slight scoff, she swung her this sword that she had preemptively reel-booted. The padlock was effortlessly smashed to pieces. Oh boy, can't wait for Takumi to come back here and thank its Shogun again. Jenna had already confirmed that Takumi had been heading from school towards the station with two of his friends. However, even if he were to find out, it would make no difference to her. When it came to attaining her goal, Senna had no qualms with others coming to detest her, or even being reported to the police. Why is she searching for this particular dude? Or guy? She opened the door and stepped into the room. Senna could only grimace at the disastrous cesspool of a room. The endless piles of trash forced a groan from her mouth.
なんで楽しそうなんだ小杖。
靴は脱いだ方がいいのかな?
With a sigh, Senna ventured deeper into the room. She was still adorning her fate.
お人形さんいっぱいなのら。たくみさんって変態さんだったんだ。すごいな。
Paying no heed to Kazue, he seemed oddly impressed. Senna stood before the PC. She turned the power on without hesitation and scoured the desk with her eyes as she waited. Furrowing her brow, she picked up a sheet of paper that had been left on the desk. An essay. Oh boy. That's not good. That's really not fucking good. Kazooie had peeked at the essay from behind Senna's back, and she was now jumping up and down in excitement. In vast contrast to Kazooie, Senna skimmed the essay with disinterest and casually flipped it over. The very next instant, her eyes widened in shock. What? Something was drawn there. It was this fucking thing. Wait. I didn't even realize this before, but it is like, it's like a giant beast, but it's like kind of like controlling other people with its like lines. You know what this reminds me of? This really reminds me of 20th Century Boys. Fantastic manga. Read it if you haven't. But this this specific drawing, it really does remind me of that series. But why is it controlling all these people? What the fuck? Senna recognized it. The sound of gritting teeth escaped from Senna's lips. Her expression was far more grim than usual, and the hand holding the essay trembled with anger.
Nishijou IR2 を生み出した張本人か。
The fuck is IR2? Her voice forcefully stifled. She crushed the sheet of paper in her fist. Well, shit. Responsible for IR2? What the hell does that mean? There was the nurse's station and stumbled around the hospital, my mind buried in fog. I was doing everything in my power to avoid thinking about what I'd just seen. Before I knew it, I found myself standing in the landing of the staircase with Misumi-kun gazing outside by the window.
どうしたタク？汗びっしょりじゃねえか。顔色も悪いし。あ、顔色悪いのはいつもか。
Do not know.
もしかして走って探してたのか？そりゃバテもするぜ。無茶するね、お前って。
I wiped my sweat away and tried desperately to feign composure.
リミと岸本、見つけたぜ。
Despite what he'd said, I couldn't see either of them. Then, for some odd reason, he pointed outside the window.
あそこだ。
Once I caught my breath, I approached the window. Could see the outpatient ward from it. The outpatient and hospital wards were separate buildings, accessible through a corridor connecting them. They weren't all that far apart, though. The hospital ward had many floors, and the landing I was on looked slightly down on the roof of the outpatient ward. On that roof, shrubbery sporting red flowers formed a makeshift garden, and it seemed to be a place where patients went to relax. In the center of the garden, I could see Rimi and Elise. Elise was wearing pajamas, and she was discussing something with Rimi. Uh-oh. Those two shouldn't know each other, right?
なんか妙にシリアスに見えねえか。
Fuck. I don't... Oh, boy. It almost looked like they were glaring at each other. Suddenly, Elise closed in on Rimi and slapped her right across the cheek. Even from where I was standing, I could tell that she hadn't held back one bit. Elise then walked away from Rimi. She was heading in the direction of the passageway, so she was probably going back to her hospital room. What the fuck?
今ビンタしたよな。
Yes, that was a bitch slap. I nodded, even after being left behind. Rimi didn't move an inch. She simply stood there.
あの二人ってトラブル抱えてんのか？
If there was, I knew nothing about it. Whether we went along with Misumi-kun's proposal to pretend like we'd never seen what we seen, they then decided we remained to our own devices and returned to Luisa's room. The state of my body had mostly recovered by now, and God's gaze had vanished. It was to the point where it felt like that horrible sickness I'd been feeling had never even been there in the first place. Misumi-kun had let out a sound from in front of me. I looked up in response, only to see Elise walking over to us. Her head hung slightly limp, and her gaze pointed downward. Her steps were slow and lacked any energy. Her face was very pale, and her expression was, to no surprise, intensely somber. We had somehow managed to bump into Elise right in front of her hospital room.
Yo, Kishimoto-san.
Misumi-kun gave the most eloquent greeting possible for him, to which Elise raised her head in surprise. She looked at me, and then, despite seeming like she was on the brink of tears, she smiled at me. Oh? Why had she done that? Had she heard about the uproar that happened in front of Ophorn? About all the shameful things I'd done? Or was she just being friendly? The former would be beyond depressing.
俺たち君のお見舞いに来たんだよね。つうか岸本さん、パジャマ姿も可愛いじゃん。
His passive pickup artist had activated barely any time at all. Talk about rushing the objective.
入って。
Although Elise had treated Misumi-kun pretty coldly before, she didn't do that this time. Instead, Elise opened her door and invited us in. She didn't show a single hint of having slapped Rimi just a few minutes ago. Was she hiding it well, or had she already gotten over it in such a short time? As per usual, I had no idea what Elise was thinking.
やっぱ見舞いに来たのは正解だったぜ。今日は好感触だ。
Yeah, man, totally. Misumi-kun gave a small fist bump while Elise wasn't looking, then excitedly entered the room. I reluctantly followed after him. In all honesty, I wanted to head home with Rimi ASAP. But I didn't have the courage to say anything to her. I didn't know the reason why, but being so fiercely slapped like that must have made her pretty depressed. And I know I didn't have the words to encourage her. Elise sat down on the bed, and Misumi-kun very casually sat beside her. Talk about daring. Couldn't help but be taken aback by Misumi-kun's mode of attack. Elise gave Misumi-kun a single glance before fixing her gaze upon me. Being stared at so blatantly put me at a loss of how exactly I was supposed to respond. I didn't know what kind of expression to make, so I just ended up looking down at the floor.
怪我どう？もうだいぶ良くなってるみたいだけど。なんか必要なものあるなら遠慮なく言ってよ。俺がすぐ買ってきてやるぜ。
He focused intently on Elise's hand. If I had to guess, he was scheming on how best to grab it, that refined, slender hand. Should I just go?
あ、小説とか読む？俺さ、グラジオール記黙示録詩編ってのが好きなんだけど。岸本さん、知ってる？
匠。
Leaving Misumi-kun's question unanswered, Elise called my name.
君はグラジオールの7騎士の一人よ。
Oh boy.
Huh?
Right into the schizo shit, huh? Even the mayhem surrounding her attempted suicide hadn't been enough to change her core.
やっぱり導きだったんだわ。君と私が出会ったのは。
Boy. Quietly, dispassionately, Elise narrated about what I could only call a total chune storyline.
君の邪神はとても強大。だからこそ言うことなしなのよ。黒騎士としての素質は。君が今経験している苦しみはすべて神罰。大いなる意志による試練なの。
Oh boy.
それを乗り越えた時に理想度は召喚されるわ。君の手に必ず。
Overcome it.
そして現れるのよ。邪神の黒き大蛇。あらゆる崩壊を飲み込み、邪神王の身を砕くことのできる。同質にして異質なるものが。現実なの。グラジオールも理想度も。かまいたちが
その証よ。
Kamaichi?
実在しない現象は後世に言葉として残ることはないわ。知っている？語源を。構えたち。それは理想度を意味しているの。信じて、匠。グラジオールを倒すのよ。一緒に。
uh Woo. Oh boy. Oh, this is getting into some shit. Crador. I remember that name. I'm gonna go with no duration here. I'd seen that term back when I first been researching disc swords. It seemed that disc sword was a term used in literature and oh my god, pseudepigraphia related to the legend of Grador, or more specifically a sword in it. I wasn't really sure though. As I continued to think, Misumi-kun quietly got up and started to walk toward me. He went to go right past me, but just before he did, he put his hand on my shoulder.
俺もうついていけねえや。あとは任せた。
Why the fuck did you pass the torch to me? With a sigh of expiration, he left the hospital room. Did he just seriously tag me in? Leave me alone like this wasn't fair. At least I hadn't shown even a hint of interest in Misumi-kun leaving. It was almost like she was pretending he had never even been there in the first place. She was always like this, always so detached from everything. Felt like I was looking at someone fundamentally different from normal people.
君が生み出したんでしょ。
Created?
あの時の花壇。
Oh.
それで悟ったの。君はすでに目覚めていると。
僕はギガロマニアックスじゃないよ。
ギガロ？何？
Oh, she's never heard of that term?
ギガロマニアックスでしょ。青いセナから聞いた。
青いセナ。そう。彼女一度だけ会ったことがあるわ。グラジオールの黒騎士よ、彼女。
Black Knights of Gardor and Gigglomaniacs. Do they mean the same thing?
とにかく僕は違うんだ。リソードだって結局手に入れられなかった。
神罰を乗り越えて、そうすれば剣は召喚される。
神罰？
苦しみ、心的負荷の爆発、心の扉の向こう側、あるいは精神的拷問。言い方はいろいろ。
僕これまでにもたくさん苦しんできたよ。
Maybe not enough, Takumi. Even now I was still suffering. I was the laughingstock of Japan. The police thought I was a murderer. Shogun and Yui were terrorizing me left and right. And everything with Nanami.
私は精神病院にいたわ。子供の頃の話。
I already knew, seen it online, but why was she suddenly bringing it up?
そこには5年弱いた。私の心はとても弱くて、だから攻撃した。周囲にあるものすべてを。
Tagged?
同時に自分のことも。
Elisa's voice was a faint murmur. The girl that sat in front of me wearing pastel pajamas and tracing the creases on the sheet with her fingertip. Creases. She had no signs of the strength she'd once had at the concert. The Elise, the Fess from back then. Had she even been real?
私はよく窓ガラスを割っていたの。問題児ね。
A faint smile formed on her lips.
割れたガラスの破片。そこに
いつもぼんやりと見えていた。
何が？
剣が。でも何年もそれが何なのかわからなかった。ようやくそれがディソードだと知ったのは施設に入って4年ほど経った頃。
4 years.
それまで私は好き放題やっていたけど、ある日施設の職員が一斉に入れ替わって、私は何ヶ月もいろいろ拷問をされて、心が壊れてしまう間際に大いなる意志の声が聞こえて、やっと召喚できたの。
拷問って？
それが神罰だった。邪神を打ち破る力を手に入れるには純粋なる邪神が必要。
So basically, she was telling me I needed to suffer more, otherwise I would never get a sword. If that was the case, then fuck that. I didn't want to experience any more pain. I'd already been broken down over and over again. I just want to be left alone. Here's an aspect of this I really like. Of the kind of like the power system in this. Like, there is a power system. It's very reminiscent of like magical girls, right? I like the different girls' interpretation of where these powers come from. I really actually like that. Senna looks at it from a more scientific point of view, while Kishimoto, or Whis, views it more from a religious point of view. You know, a more fantastical way. You know, it is the will of God, or the greater will, or what have you. Kazupi just got the sword because she just needed to hurt somebody. She wanted to kill somebody. But I really like that. I've always liked that type of thing in stories of taking a single like thing, like an event or like a phenomenon, and make each person interpret it in different ways, because that's 100% realistic. 100% realistic of, like, you know, for example, natural phenomenon in our world like thunder. Greek people thought it was the rage of Zeus because they didn't make a sacrifice for him or offered something to the gods. Therefore, it raised his anger of casting down lightning and stuff. That's how people interpret that natural phenomenon. So I always like it in stories of how people try to interpret the powers, or the kind of power system in their story of, like, where the hell does it actually come from? It could be a religious point of view or a scientific point of view. But either way, I always appreciate that in my stories. Anyway. At my wit's end, I felt the urge to scream and shout and let it all out. But Elisa's voice didn't allow me to.
すべてはお告げよ。すでに渋谷に集っているはずなの。7人の黒騎士は。
Well?
あとは全員が覚醒するだけ。急がないと世界は滅びるわ。グラジオールの手によって。
Machinations of Galdor, huh? Well, shit, man. Well, shit. Yeah, I feel like this is a good stopping point right here, folks, as we have gotten a little bit more information about how Luis looks at all of this, and I don't know, it's just like it really does feel like we're coming to a close here. We're definitely like something's up. Nothing has gone wrong yet. You know that feeling? The calm before the storm. I feel like we're 100% in that field for right now. So yeah, I think we're getting closer and closer to the end of this first route at least, and I'm very curious as to how the hell it's going to end and how all this really ties together. Like, what is with the new gen murders? Who is the murderer? What's the deal with Shogun? Were these Giggle Maniacs created in a, well, not created in a lab, but like forced to become Giggle Maniacs to make super powered soldiers or something for a corporation. Like, I'm leaning towards that. It makes the most amount of sense in my mind, but maybe I could be completely fucking wrong. Maybe it's something else. I don't know. But by God, I'm in this story. This story has completely sucked me in. It really has. I just want to know what the hell is going to happen. What the hell is going to happen? Literally anything could happen in this story. Like, it has that feeling I had with Higurashi and Yumi Neko of this could go anywhere. This really could go fucking anywhere by this point, and I'd still probably be invested in it the same. But yeah, I hope you guys have enjoyed this episode. If you did, hit that subscribe button. If you liked it, hit the like button. If you told me something, put that comments below. Check out Discord server on it or my Twitter. Text you guys below. And yeah, it's been Voidlego. I'll see you guys next time. See ya!